What if two disappearances, years and miles apart, were tied together by a strange and puzzling connection that left the world searching for answers? Two young lives, full of promise, vanished into thin air. One was a high school senior enjoying her last days of freedom on a tropical island. The other, a stranger whose dark story would unexpectedly cross paths with hers. What secrets are hidden beneath the sunny beaches of Aruba? What connection could span such distance and time? Tonight we uncover the pieces of these haunting mysteries, trace the events step by step, and reveal truths that are both shocking and hard to explain. The more we uncover, the darker the story becomes. Stay with us, because some answers come with a heavy cost. It was meant to be the trip of a lifetime, a senior class celebration on the serene beaches of Aruba. For Natalee Holloway, this was the perfect way to close one chapter of her life and step boldly into the next. Natalee was a standout, bright, kind, and full of promise, a natural leader with her future ahead of her. She was ready to embrace the world beyond high school. Aruba welcomed the group with open arms, pristine beaches, turquoise waters, and nights filled with music and excitement. It seemed to be everything they had imagined. For Natalee and her friends, the days were filled with exploration and joy. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, the island transformed into a hub of nightlife, where freedom and the allure of the unknown awaited. On the final night of their trip, the group headed to Carlos and Charlie's, a popular spot for tourists. It was alive with energy, and Natalee, like so many others, was swept up in the festivities. But even in paradise, shadows lurk. New acquaintances made that night would soon become central figures in a tragedy that no one could have predicted. When morning came, Natalee Holloway was nowhere to be found. How did a joyous vacation turn into a nightmare? What happened in those final hours? The answers would spark a global search for truth. As morning broke, Natalee's absence became glaring. Her friends, initially unconcerned, quickly realized something was wrong when she failed to show up for their departure. Calls to Natalee went unanswered. Attempts to retrace her steps brought only more confusion and worry. Back home in Alabama, Beth Holloway received the news every parent fears. Her daughter was missing, and she wasted no time boarding a flight to Aruba, determined to bring her home. Upon arrival, Beth began piecing together the fragmented details of Natalee's final hours. What she uncovered was far from reassuring. Aruban authorities launched an official investigation, interviewing witnesses and retracing Natalee's steps. The last confirmed sighting placed her with 3 young men as she left the nightclub. After that, the trail went cold. The once idyllic setting of Aruba now became a place of relentless searching. Volunteers combed beaches and waters, hoping for any sign of Natalee. "We won't leave until we bring Natalee home." But even with the world's attention, the answers remained elusive. Who were the last people to see Natalee alive? And what were they hiding? The investigation turned its focus to 3 individuals: Joran van der Sloot, a Dutch national, and 2 brothers, Deepak and Satish Kalpo. They were the last known people to see Natalee. Initially, the trio claimed they had dropped Natalee off at her hotel, but as their stories were scrutinized, inconsistencies began to emerge. Joran van der Sloot's calm demeanor and conflicting accounts drew significant suspicion. Was he a calculated manipulator, or was there more to the story? Despite intense questioning and mounting evidence, concrete answers remained out of reach. each revelation seemed only to deepen the mystery. As news of Natalee Holloway's disappearance spread, the media descended upon Aruba. A local tragedy quickly became an international spectacle. The Holloway family's grief became a public affair, with Beth Holloway taking a leading role in keeping the search for her daughter alive. Television shows, newspapers, and online forums buzzed with speculation. The spotlight brought immense pressure on authorities, but also fueled misinformation and conspiracy theories. Joran van der Sloot, under scrutiny from the investigation, became the center of media attention. Every move he made and every word he spoke was dissected by both experts and the public. But as the cameras rolled, the investigation itself struggled. Promising leads fizzled, and the complexities of the case deepened. In the midst of the media frenzy, one question persisted. Was the intense public focus helping uncover the truth or obscuring it further? The global focus on Natalee Holloway's disappearance turned every piece of information into a potential lead. For investigators, this also meant carefully evaluating numerous tips and reports to separate genuine clues from distractions. The suspects' accounts continued to shift under scrutiny, revealing inconsistencies that puzzled investigators. Were key details being withheld, or was the investigation hindered by conflicting information? Beth Holloway remained steadfast in her efforts. She carefully pursued every lead, regardless of its size, with the hope of finding her daughter. With each passing day, the emotional toll on Natalee's family grew heavier. Yet their determination inspired countless supporters to join the search for answers. As doubts about the investigation's direction emerged, questions arose about whether critical mistakes had been made. Was the truth within reach, or had it slipped away forever? The search for Natalee Holloway became a symbol of hope, resilience, and the enduring fight for justice. Despite mounting scrutiny, Aruba's law enforcement emphasized their commitment to uncovering the truth. However, concerns arose over whether the investigation faced limitations due to resource constraints or procedural missteps. The media amplified every inconsistency, fueling public skepticism. Meanwhile, Natalee's family grappled with the emotional toll of navigating a system they felt was ill-equipped to handle the case. Locals and tourists shared accounts, some claiming to have seen Natalee after her last confirmed sighting. Others described second-hand reports of possible threats. Investigators pursued each lead diligently, but none provided the breakthrough they hoped for. Beth Holloway's persistence became a symbol of hope and determination. Her unwavering efforts served as a reminder of the stakes involved and the lengths a family will go to find answers. As the investigation struggled to progress, public trust began to waver, leaving many to wonder if the truth was slipping further out of reach. At the center of the storm was Joran van der Sloot, the last known person to see Natalee Holloway alive. To the world, he was both enigmatic and infuriating. A man whose charisma masked the darker undercurrents of his character. In the weeks following Natalee's disappearance, Joran became a media sensation. But with every interview, every smug smile, and every misstep, he painted himself as less of a victim of circumstance and more as a man hiding something. His story changed repeatedly. First, he claimed he left Natalee at her hotel. Then, he said she became unwell, and he left her on the beach. Later, he hinted at even darker possibilities, only to recant. The shifting narratives sowed confusion, but one thing remained constant. Joran knew more than he was saying. Investigators turned up more troubling details. Joran was no stranger to controversy. Stories of gambling, volatile behavior, and questionable relationships painted a picture of a man who thrived on manipulation. Despite growing suspicion, Aruba's legal system struggled to hold him accountable. Arrests were made, interrogations were conducted, but the lack of physical evidence meant charges didn't stick. Each release only deepened the Holloway family's despair. But Joran's unraveling wasn't limited to the courtroom. As the years passed, his behavior became increasingly erratic. Allegations of extortion, fraud, and violence followed him wherever he went. Each new headline seemed to underscore a sinister truth. Joran van der Sloot was a man haunted by his past. As his lies began to collapse under their own weight, one question loomed larger than ever. Was Joran van der Sloot the key to solving Natalee Holloway's disappearance? Or was he simply another piece of a puzzle that refused to come together? As the case of Natalee Holloway stagnated on Aruban soil, her family made the heart-wrenching decision to expand their search beyond the island's borders. Was it possible that Natalee had been trafficked, spirited away to an unknown fate in a foreign land? Human trafficking experts weighed in, pointing to the Caribbean's proximity to known trafficking routes. Aruba, while a tourist haven, wasn't immune to the darker undercurrents of criminal activity. Could Natalee have been taken off the island under the cover of night? Theories emerged, some credible, others chillingly speculative. Tips poured in from nearby countries. A woman resembling Natalee was allegedly seen in Venezuela. Another report placed her in Curaçao. Each new lead sent Beth Holloway and her team of private investigators racing across borders, only to encounter dead ends. For investigators, the logistics of trafficking presented a grim possibility. If Natalee had been taken, she could have been moved swiftly through a web of connections, making her almost impossible to track. Still, Beth refused to let this possibility deter her mission. But the search beyond Aruba wasn't without challenges. With each new country came new bureaucratic hurdles, language barriers, and the risk of false hope. And as the months turned to years, the emotional toll on Natalee's family became undeniable. Yet, even in the face of despair, Beth Holloway found allies. Organizations dedicated to fighting human trafficking joined her cause, helping to shine a light on the darker corners of the world. Together, they raised awareness, not just for Natalee, but for countless others who had vanished without a trace. Still, the question remained. Was Natalee Holloway a victim of trafficking, or was the truth of her disappearance still hidden on the shores of Aruba? For Beth, every possibility had to be explored, no matter how painful or improbable. The search beyond Aruba became a journey of hope and heartbreak, marked by the indomitable spirit of a mother who refused to give up. But even as new leads emerged, the answers seemed as elusive as ever. And with each passing day, the mystery of Natalee Holloway only deepened.
As the search for Natalee Holloway stretched into months and then years, the strain on her family became impossible to ignore. Grief has a way of isolating people, and for the Holloway family, the weight of the unknown created cracks that even love struggled to bridge. Beth Holloway emerged as the public face of the search, relentless, outspoken, and tireless in her pursuit of answers. But behind the scenes, her determination took its toll. Sleepless nights, media scrutiny, and the endless cycle of hope and despair left her emotionally raw. While Beth's focus remained on the search, others in the family processed their grief differently. Natalee's father, Dave Holloway, took a quieter approach. He worked tirelessly to support the investigation but struggled with the overwhelming spotlight and the pressure to stay hopeful in the face of mounting odds. The differences in their approaches sometimes led to tension. For Beth, every moment not spent searching felt like giving up. For Dave, the need to maintain some semblance of normalcy became his way of coping. Each believed they were doing what was best for Natalee, but the emotional toll was undeniable. Adding to the strain were the endless theories and opinions from the public. Well-meaning strangers offered unsolicited advice, while critics questioned the family's actions and motivations. Every word spoken, or left unsaid, was dissected under the harsh glare of the media. Natalee's younger brother Matthew found himself caught in the crossfire. The tragedy had thrust his family into the public eye, leaving him to navigate his own grief while living in the shadow of his sister's disappearance. It's hard to be the one left behind. Everyone talks about Natalee, and I miss her too, but sometimes I feel invisible. Despite the strain, the Holloway family's love for Natalee remained their unifying force. They clung to memories of her infectious laughter, her boundless energy, and the way she lit up every room she entered. But as the years passed, the question loomed: how do you hold on to hope when the world demands answers you don't have? For the Holloway family, the journey wasn't just about finding Natalee. It was about finding a way to keep living, even in the face of unimaginable loss. Though grief threatened to divide them, the Holloways remained bound by their love for the daughter, sister, and friend they refused to forget. And through it all, one truth remained unshaken: they would never stop searching for Natalee. As the investigation dragged on, an unexpected lead emerged: a drunken confession that hinted at secrets too dark to ignore. The owner of the house where Joran and his friends had spent time reached out to Beth Holloway's father with chilling information. Late one night, after too many drinks, a friend of Joran's had allegedly confessed to being involved in a cover-up. The house owner claimed that Joran's friend spoke of panic, of things getting out of hand, and of events that could never be undone. But who was this friend, and why had he stayed silent for so long? Investigators turned their attention to this mysterious individual, hoping his slip of the tongue might unravel the web of lies surrounding Natalee's disappearance. The confession raised more questions than it answered. Was this friend complicit in Joran's actions? Or was he simply repeating rumors in a moment of weakness? The more investigators probed, the clearer it became that the circle around Joran might hold the answers that had eluded them for years. Frustrated with the lack of progress, one of Dave Holloway's close friends decided to take matters into his own hands. A former investigator with a sharp mind and an unrelenting drive, he became an unofficial extension of the search for Natalee. This friend conducted his own interviews, delving into the lives of those closest to Joran. From former acquaintances to employees at local establishments, he pieced together a mosaic of Joran's movements and behaviors. His focus narrowed on a series of suspicious interactions between Joran and his inner circle. One account stood out: a witness who claimed to have seen Joran and his friends behaving erratically near an isolated beach on the night Natalee disappeared. The friend's efforts didn't go unnoticed. While his findings couldn't always be substantiated, they reignited the investigation and kept the pressure on those who might have been involved. Though his work was unofficial, this friend's investigation showed the power of persistence and the impact of those willing to stand by a grieving family in their darkest hours. The case of Stephanie Flores cast a long shadow over Joran van der Sloot, not just for its chilling similarities to Natalee's disappearance, but for the insight it offered into his character. Stephanie, like Natalee, was lured into Joran's orbit by his charm, but unlike Natalee, her final hours were more clearly documented. Security footage, hotel records, and Joran's eventual confession painted a grim picture of a man who acted without remorse. The timeline of events was disturbingly precise. After winning money at a Lima casino, Stephanie encountered Joran, who invited her to his hotel room. Hours later, she was found dead, her life stolen in a moment of violence. Joran's behavior in the days following Stephanie's death was cold and calculating. He fled the country, changed his appearance, and attempted to evade capture. But even as he was apprehended, he remained unapologetic. For investigators, the parallels between Stephanie's case and Natalee's disappearance were impossible to ignore. The same patterns of manipulation, violence, and evasion pointed to a man whose actions might hold the key to both tragedies. The connection between the two women revealed a darker truth about Joran van der Sloot, a truth that continued to haunt those left searching for justice. Over the years, Joran van der Sloot faced a series of trials, not just in courtrooms, but in the public eye. Each revelation about his life painted a picture of a man whose lies knew no bounds. From his conviction in Peru for the murder of Stephanie Flores to his extradition to the United States for extortion, Duran's legal battles became a spectacle that kept Natalee's case in the headlines. In 2010, he approached the Holloway family with a cruel proposition. For $250,000, he claimed, he would reveal the location of Natalee's remains. The FBI intervened, exposing his scheme and securing an indictment for extortion. But even behind bars, Duran continued to manipulate. His confessions were riddled with contradictions, and his accounts of Natalee's final hours changed with each retelling. The trials showed the lengths Duran would go to for his own gain, but they also highlighted the resilience of the families who refused to let his lies go unchallenged.
As the years have passed, the stories of Natalee Holloway and Stephanie Flores have become more than tragedies. They have become symbols of love, loss, and resilience. For the Holloway and Flores families, the weight of their loss is something they carry every day. But so too is the love that drives them to keep searching, keep fighting, and keep remembering. In moments of darkness, the families have found light in the kindness of strangers, the dedication of those who joined their cause, and the enduring memories of Natalee and Stephanie's lives. As the world reflects on their stories, one truth remains clear. The power of love can endure even the deepest tragedies. And in that love, there is hope. Because for Natalee, Stephanie, and all those who have vanished, their families' fight for justice proves that they will never be forgotten. Even as Joran van der Sloot sits behind bars, the search for answers continues. His imprisonment brought a sense of justice for Stephanie Flores, but for Natalee's family it left them with a bittersweet victory, a sense of closure just out of reach. In interviews from his Peruvian cell, Joran's behavior remains as erratic as ever. One moment, he denies any involvement in Natalee's disappearance. The next, he dangles false promises of revealing the truth. His manipulative tactics frustrate investigators and torment the Holloway family. Psychologists who have studied his case point to a chilling pattern of behavior. A man who thrives on control, even from behind bars. Despite the evidence against him, Joran continues to play the role of puppet master, holding the truth hostage while feeding the media his lies. Joran's 28-year sentence in Peru for Stephanie's murder ensures he remains behind bars, but his legal troubles extend beyond South America. Extradited to the United States, he faced charges of extortion against the Holloway family, showcasing the lengths he would go to exploit their pain for financial gain. For investigators, the challenge lies in separating fact from fiction. While Joran's claims are unreliable, they occasionally provide hints that send detectives back to re-examine old leads. Each new revelation keeps the hope alive that one day the truth will come to light. As years turn to decades, the search for Natalee Holloway's remains has evolved. Technological advancements, including ground-penetrating radar and enhanced DNA analysis, have given investigators new tools to examine Aruba's landscape. Volunteers and professionals alike continue to search, combing beaches, caves, and ocean depths for any trace of Natalee. Meanwhile, the spotlight on Joran's actions has sparked broader discussions about justice for missing persons. Advocacy groups inspired by Natalee's story have emerged, fighting for legislative changes and raising awareness about unsolved disappearances around the globe. The Holloway family's determination remains unwavering. Each year they host vigils, share Natalee's story, and collaborate with law enforcement to keep the case alive. Their resilience has turned their personal tragedy into a powerful movement, one that has inspired countless others to seek justice for their loved ones. The fight for Natalee isn't just about uncovering the truth. It's about ensuring that no family has to endure the same pain without answers. And as long as hope remains, the search for justice will continue.